when we're supposed to be debating, supposed to show.
Live streaming is on.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, so where's our debate at? Let me see. Oh, brother, what did I do with our debate? Hold on. This might be it here. Hold on. Do you see it?
Hasn't started yet.
Okay, because we're live right now.
Okay, here it goes.
Yep.
There
There we go. Good. So let me get my hat. And as soon as I get back in the room, you can get started with your screen share. All right. Well, everybody know the rules and everything. Introduce yourself and everything. Floyd, tell them how they can find you and everything, and give them a bit of history between the two of us. And like I said, take your time, and then go ahead and start with your opening statement.
All right, I'm Floyd FP. Jimmy and I have been part of the Great Debate community for years now, so we know each other pretty good. We're going to discuss G-Man's video he did like a week ago on whether or not atheists consider themselves gods, and do they act like gods of themselves and stuff like that. So it's going to be pretty informal. I'm going to do a opening PowerPoint. You know, I always do a lot of PowerPoints for people who know me, and then we'll have a short rebuttal time and really just get into an informal back and forth. So if you're ready, I can start my presentation.
Yes, you can, but just give me 1 second because I know you're going to be screen sharing. Just give me 1 sec. Okay, I'm trying to find this on YouTube, but I can do it with my phone. Go ahead and do what you got to do. I'm going to be quiet until you finish.
Okay. All right, let me check YouTube real quick, make sure it's there. All right, there it is. Good. All right, ready to start. So again, this is a response to G-Man's video he made last week called Are Atheists Gods? So do atheists view themselves as sovereign over the realm in which they exist? So around the minute 40 mark, G-Man states, do they, atheists, consider themselves sovereign? Yes, they practice sovereignty all the time. They think they can do whatever they want. Well, not without consequences. We can't do whatever we want because there's consequences. We try to follow laws and rules for the common good. Atheists simply deny the consequences come from a God. So there's powers, kingdoms, countries, people who view themselves as sovereign, and they rise and fall throughout history. This could happen to us too. So we need to behave wisely. So do atheists think that they can do whatever they want? Well, there are impersonal forces that are greater than us. We should recognize them. We're not sovereign over time, aging, all of our thoughts in our head, our nature, our environment, diseases, and so forth. So there's a lot of impersonal forces that we have to live with. And there's personal agents as well that we live with. There's authorities in our lives, our employers, the government, the care of other beings like our children. Atheists simply do not recognize the authority of a God. That's all. Humans are a social species, so we must cooperate with each other for our well-being and survival. So we can't be just a sovereign person that doesn't recognize how we affect our surroundings. We try to improve our lives by using our own effort, despite of these situations, by trying to overcome them through mutual cooperation and living in harmony with them. We can only do so within our human limits and understanding, though. So our atheist gods are around the 741 mark. G-Man says they're going to die like men, according to Scripture. Well, I certainly think I'm going to die one day. This verse comes from Psalm 82. It says, God has taken his place in the divine council. In the midst of the gods, he holds judgment. I say, you are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, you shall die like men and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thy belong to all the nations. In the original context, this is really not talking about people. This is really talking about other gods. In this psalm, Yahweh rises to the head god of the divine council and banishes other gods to Sheol. So this is part of Judaism's polytheistic past. For more information about this, you can watch Dr. Michael Heiser's YouTube videos on the Divine Council. If you want to learn more about this Psalm 82. Do humans deify humans and impersonal forces? At the 10:15 mark, G-Man says, in order to be an atheist, you must be without theism. You are not devoid of theism. You worship yourself, you worship your leaders, you worship your heroes, as they can do no wrong. Well, I think we can have a discussion on what it means to worship, but I think it's a kind of equivocation. Saying comes to mind when I hear this is, never meet your heroes because they're sure to disappoint you. So what this means is, we have this idealistic view of our heroes, and we look up to them, and we think they're awesome and stuff. And, in our younger years, we might even worship them. But when we come to, if we actually meet them, we realize how flawed they are, and they're just humans like us. So it's better not to meet our heroes because this is going to disappoint us. But something comes with age and experience. But we can value things like the sun and recognize the achievements and successes of others without deifying them. So this gets into accepting authority. How should we view authority? I think this is where G-Man and I, as well as other evangelical Christians, differ. We accept and assign authority for common good, for pragmatic reasons. Founding Father John Adams puts it well, where he writes, the government is instituted for the common good, for the protection, safety, prosperity, and happiness of the people, not for the profit, honor, or private interests of any one man, family, or class of men. So in the United States, we have government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And we don't accept authority for authority's sake, but Christianity does. In Romans 13, it says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those they exist to have been instituted by God. Former Attorney General Jeff Sessions actually quoted Romans 13:1 in justification of them taking immigrant children away from their parents down in Texas. So he justified that God instituted the Trump administration, so therefore they're justified in taking the children away from their parents. This can be a very dangerous viewpoint, I think. If you just blindly accept authority, they can abuse the people, and they're not doing it for the common good. So we shouldn't accept authority for authority's sake. So that leads us to what is the basis for Christian morality? It's authority based around pleasing God and based on reward and punishment. For this God, human flourishing is not the highest good. The highest good is whatever makes the most free-willed people glorify Him. So we see this in Deuteronomy 28, where it says, if you're not careful to do all the words of this law which are written in this book, that you may fear this glorious and awful name, the Lord your God, then the Lord will bring on you and your offspring extraordinary afflictions severe and lasting, and sickness grievous and lasting. We see this in the New Testament as well. I'm not going to read all these verses, but Jesus basically says, if you follow Him and obey Him and worship Him, you will have treasures in heaven. Your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And for those who don't follow Jesus and don't obey Him, it shall be more tolerable on the day of judgment for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah than for that town. In the letter of James, we learn what is religion that is pure, and it says religion religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. No, I think those are good qualities because they help society. They help the common good. But in evangelical theology, all our righteous deeds are like filthy rags. So it's not about doing good deeds, doing what's good for society and the common good, but rather it's about following, worshiping, and obeying this divine dictator, Jesus and Yahweh. And we see that in John 14, where he says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. So in Christianity, it doesn't matter what you do, but who you are. So in Christianity, God is defined as good. So whatever God does is the good. So it doesn't matter what he does. He can commit genocide. He can endure slavery. It doesn't matter. If it comes from God, that is what makes it good. So in Christian morality, morality is subjective since it's based on the mind of their God, where what is objective is mind independent. So in Christianity, there's no intrinsic value, only extrinsic. All values imposed externally by their God. So in my view, I follow this. Think not of Socrates, but think of the truth. What this means is it doesn't matter where the truth comes from. It doesn't matter if the truth came out of the mouth of Socrates. So what's important is the truth itself, not the person uttering the truth. And the truth is not found in a person, but rather in the propositions that a person, any person, would make. So, so what's my secular morality based on? Around the 614 mark, G-Man says atheists do not have a moral basis. They don't have a set of rules to follow. Well, the basis of morality for me is based on the well-being of sentient creatures, not pleasing some divine dictator and reward and punishment from that dictator. It's based on objective facts about us and the environment we find ourselves in, not based on who dictates moral commands. In my worldview, it doesn't matter who you are, but what you do. So the more authority you have should mean the more responsibility towards others you have, not that you can abuse that authority and have special status. So authoritarianism and tribalism must end for people to get along with each other. And because there is no God to help us, we must rely on ourselves. And this is more important than ever. Think of the COVID-19 pandemic we're in right now. We all must work together. We have to social distance. We need to wear masks. We shouldn't gather in large crowds. Why are we doing this? For our own good, for the common good. So we can flourish as a society. And currently we're not doing well. We're failing at this. So it's up to us. We have to make the human effort. And whether Christians recognize this or not, we can perhaps discuss this in this open discussion. Christianity presupposes this concept of seeking well-being. This is what the covenants of the Bible are about. If you obey God, you will be rewarded. If you disobey, you will be punished. Even in the New Covenant of the New Testament, this is the case. In John 3:36, we read, "He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him." This verse assumes that we want everlasting life and we want to avoid wrath, naturally. In Revelation 21:4, we read, "He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away." Obviously, this is appealing to us. We want these things because this is part of our very nature. We need these. We want to avoid suffering and so forth. And here, God is willing and will grant this in His good grace to Christians. Later on in his video, G-Man, I think you get confused on the pagan gods. So says this quickly. Thor is supposed to be Thor. Thor is in the North mythos. He is the hammer-yielding son of Odin. He's a god of thunder, lightning, storms, sacred groves, and trees and strengths. Certain mythos do evolve from other mythos, but I think you're confusing the Greek and Roman mythos with each other because they are very similar. The Roman mythos basically comes from the Greek mythos. So the Greek Zeus is Jupiter in the Roman mythos. Hades is Pluto. Aphrodite is Venus. Poseidon is Neptune, etc. So G-Man claims that pagan deities come from the Bible characters, though. Around 1912 mark, he states you can trace all these pagan religions back to those three Bible characters. He mentions Nimrod and others. So he's claiming that the Bible stories came first, and everything else are just evolved from that or derivative from that. I say the opposite. I say Judaism evolved from paganism. After all, archaeologists and scholars tell us that the Israelites were originally Canaanites who migrated from the Canaanite coastal plains to the interior around 1250 BCE. So they were former Canaanites who broke off from the Canaanites. In the Old Testament, we have stories of demythologized gods who are just basically turned into human heroes. An example of that is Samson. Samson is a sun god. The word Samson itself means the sun. When he cuts his hair, when his hair is cut, he loses his rays, his sun rays, and loses his power. So Samson's a sun god. Nimrod is a great hunter, analogous to Orion, and Moses was patterned after King Sargon. So I think it's the opposite. Judaism is kind of evolution from paganism. There's also pagan influences on Christianity. Popular pagan ideas, gods, and rituals were absorbed into Christianity. Adonis, Mithra, Dionysus, or Osiris, and other sacred gods became Jesus, and Philo's divine logos, taken from Hellenistic philosophy, became Jesus in the John Gospel. One of the early church fathers, Justin Martyr, recognized this and wrote, "We propound nothing different from what you believe regarding those whom you esteem the sons of Jupiter." And how does he rationalize that Christianity is similar to these other pagan religions? Well, he says wicked devils perpetrated these things. And there's pagan influence in society today. Just think of the days of the week. We have Sunday, Moon Day, Tears Day, Woden's Day. Woden is Odin. Thor's Day, Freak's Day, and Saturn's Day. And we see this evolution in the Bible God. The Christian God evolved from a very anthropomorphic God, being one of the sons of the Most High God, Elyon, who had a wife, Asheroth, who later was promoted to head god of the Divine Council, who was then declared the only God after the Babylonian exile, and who eventually evolved into the most perfect being conceivable of the philosophers and theologians. So that's my opening presentation.
All right, so I guess it's my turn. I didn't use Microsoft PowerPoint for my opening, but I did prepare something. So let me just make sure it's ready. And I'll go over my opening statement. I'm probably only going to be about 7 or 8 minutes. I don't think I'm going to be longer than that. First and foremost, I hope everyone's having a great day. I'm just going to go over what the argument was originally and my attitude towards this particular topic of whether or not atheists are gods or not. All right. And I think a lot of you are going to find this to be interesting. So if you never heard me argue this before. So let me do a quick screen share here. You should all be able to see my screen. Tell me, Floyd, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So I'm going to have to play this and pause this every now and then. But that's the question right there. I'm looking at this on YouTube. Okay, cool. And it says, I'm going to need you to stop the background noise, though. You got to mute or something. Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll mute.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so it says, are atheists their own gods? All right. Well, the first thing we got to talk about is what is an atheist to begin with. So just so we all on the same page. All right. An atheist is a person who has no belief in the existence of supernatural, naturalistic gods or gods due to a lack of evidence. This is the mantra that they constantly repeat over and over and over again here on YouTube, and it is supported by the dictionary. A means to be without. Theism means a belief in God. So they are claiming that they are without a belief in a God. That is what atheism is, what an atheist is as a whole. They claim that they don't have a belief in a God due to a lack of evidence. Just to shoot that down really fast. The claim that no evidence exists for a God or God has been debunked with the arguments like intelligent design, answer prayer, and the presuppositional argument. For example, I believe that answer prayer, the presuppositional argument, and intelligent design is evidence that God exists. So who can tell me there is no evidence for God or gods? Nobody. Therefore, evidence for gods, for God or gods existence exists. What is a God? That's going to be the big question that we're gonna have to tackle here today, because again, my claim in the video that I made was that atheists are their own gods. They're their own little deities. So when I say that an atheist is a god, what definition am I using? What am I talking about when I'm talking about this? And for those of you who are concerned about me not responding to some of the things that Floyd was talking about, this is my opening statement. So just relax. And not just any God, but the God that I say atheists are, because I'm very specific about what I talk about. I am definitely not calling them, all powerful, all knowing, infinite beings who are self-aware, who lives outside of time and space. That is not what I'm calling atheists. All right. I'm calling them a supreme ruler, a final judge, or a divine final ruler on matters of life and morality. And I'll go into my logic with this very shortly. I want you guys to think about something for a second concerning the God that we Christians worship. Who tells the God of the Bible what is right and what is wrong? I want everybody to think about that for a moment. Who tells the God of the Bible what is right and wrong? Nobody. Because what is right and wrong comes directly from God, right? You guys following me? Of course, nobody, because he is the final ruler and judge of all. Let me say this again. Nobody, because he is the final ruler and judge of all. Who tells an atheist what is good and what is evil? Who can overrule what they believe is moral? If any of you who's ever had a discussion with an atheist when it comes to morality, we always pose this question: how do they come to the conclusion that something is right and wrong? And who can overrule what they actually believe is right and wrong? And the answer should be simple. Nobody, because atheists believe morality is subjective and moral absolutes don't exist. Who controls the will of God? Who tells him how to rule his life or to rule his universe? Nobody. The only person that tells God how to rule things is himself. And by the way, in order for that to be true, in order for God to be God, that would have to be the case. Now, logically speaking, we have to, if we're comparing and contrasting this with the atheists, with atheists here online and atheists in general, we have to ask this question: who controls the will of atheists? Who tells them how to rule their life? Who tells them this? Who tells the atheist what their will should be? If you ever had a conversation with an atheist, this is the response that you're typically going to get from an atheist on this particular topic. And that nobody tells me what to do. Nobody. Not God, not another human being, not the government. Nobody tells me what to do. And this is the attitude of the atheist. The atheist is their own final ruler when it comes to morality, and they're their own final ruler when it comes to their own will. Okay, when we're talking about Christians, we say that God's will be done. We surrender our will to someone that we recognize is greater than us. And in this case, that would be God. But again, when we're talking about atheists, who are they surrendering their will to? Absolutely nobody, because nobody can tell them what to do. But this is what atheist actually says, and I kind of covered this already. I do what I want. And I thought this was the most appropriate picture when I was looking for something here on this particular topic. They literally think they can do whatever they want. Some of them might say as long as they're not harming other people, but for the most part, it is I do what I want. No one tells them what to do. Now, if I look at God and I ask him, who's telling him what to do? Who's ruling over him? No one's telling him what to do. No one's ruling over him. So atheists have a lot of similarities with the God that we worship. Let me let this go by. Or another thing that they say is, or my will be done. It's all about what the atheist thinks. It's all about their subjective morality, their own subjective opinions. Okay? These concepts should not be hard to grasp. Look at what atheists who are Satanists believe. Anton LaVey, the founder of the Satanic Church, said, there are certain values that Satanists promote, such as pride, individualism, and personal liberty. Having pride in oneself allows you to make the best of what you have. Being able to have personal liberty allows you to have the choice to be an individual. So instead of just going along with what everyone else is doing, you have the opportunity to be a unique individual. But he goes on to say something else too. Yeah, I think a lot of you are going to find interesting. Okay. Here we go. Satan serves as an external metaphorical projection. And this is a quote here. Quote, Satan serves as an external metaphorical projection of our highest personal potential. This potential is what Satanists speak of when they refer to becoming one's own God. Okay. Let me let this one go. Anton LaVey is an atheist. How can he become his own God and still be considered an atheist? And that is the thought that we're going to be taking into the rest of this debate, ladies and gents, because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Okay, so let me take this off the screen share. All right, and get back into the room here. All right. I'm trying to put myself back on the big screen. Am I still screen sharing? Cancel. Okay, cool. So you should be able to see me on the big screen now. All right. So my argument, ladies and gents, is that atheists are their own final rulers, and atheists are their own final that atheists are the ones who determine what is right and wrong in their life. The only person that can be a final anything to determine whether or not something is right, whether or not something is right or wrong, is a deity or a God. When you start believing that you're the only person that can determine whether or not this person is a good person or a bad person, or this is a good thing or this is a bad thing, you make yourself out to be the final decision maker when it comes to morality, or the final ruler in your life when it comes to morality. No one can sway you. Your mind can't be changed or anything like that. It's whatever you decide that's going to be right or wrong. And in the same sense, when it comes to your will and how you're going to live your life and what goes on in your particular world and what your worldview is going to be, if you're the one that determines whether or not something is going to happen a certain way or it doesn't happen a certain way, or which direction you're going to go in, that makes you the final ruler in your life. And if you're the final ruler when it comes to morality in your life, which talks about right or wrong and how you interact with other people, as well as your worldview and how you see the world, how you interact with other people in the world, the final decisions that you make while you're living in the world, that would make you out to be a God. Now, there's a couple of definitions that I want to go over here real quick for you to give you an idea of just how vast this word is. It's not just somebody who's omnipresent, all-knowing, all-powerful, the definition of the Christian God. There are other definitions that exist for this. Like, for example, a pantheist would say the definition of pantheism is a doctrine that equates God with the forces and laws of the universe, right? The New Agers believe, theologically, the New Age typically adopts a belief in a holistic form of divinity that that imbues all the universe, including human beings themselves. Okay, there is thus a strong emphasis on the spiritual authority of self, the elevation of self, the exhortation of self. You know what I mean? The making self so important that self is more important than everything that goes on in your particular life, in your life, which would actually make you, by definition, God. If everything around in the world revolves around you and what you think and what your decisions are going to be, by definition, that makes you a God. Now, I know that my opponent today, Floyd, disagrees with that, and we're about to get into an open discussion about this. So let the games begin. Let's do this. Floyd, I'm finished. You want to do your rebuttal or?
Why don't we start with the open discussion? I'll just respond to some of the things you said, and you can respond right back. I think it'd be better instead of waiting. I think it'll be a lot, a more lively.
Let's do one rebuttal. Let's do one rebuttal first. You do a 5 or 6 minute rebuttal first, and then I do a 5 or 6 minute rebuttal, and then we'll do a conversation. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
All right.
So your definition of God is basically who is the supreme or final ruler in your life concerning how to live, morality, and so forth. And you say for the atheists, it's the person himself. It's the atheist. He's the final ruler. And I think some of your other comments are kind of very similar. Such as who controls the will of the atheist and things like that. And I do what I want. So when you say that, you're the final ruler in life, so the thing is that if Christians have free will, and I don't think you're a Calvinist, but even moderate and more liberal Calvinists believe that humans have free will, although Calvinists are more compatibilists. But if you're Arminian, you believe in libertarian free will. Well, if you have free will, then you as a moral agent has to decide whether to follow God or not. So you're making that decision. You have free will. So you're making the decision to follow God. Why are you following God? As I pointed out, because you will be rewarded. You will avoid hell. You will not be punished. There's a benefit in following God. So that's the motivation to follow God. And just like an atheist obviously wants to do things that will benefit himself. Now, I just don't live for myself. He says self is the most important thing. Well, I get my butt out of bed early every morning. My alarm goes off to get to work. And why do I do that? To support my family, because I love my family. I give my life to my child. When they're happy, I'm happy. So I think I live more than just myself. Obviously I want to be happy, but I think people around me being happy makes me happy as well, and vice versa. So we're a social species, so therefore we don't live like a spider, isolated from other beings. We live among others, and we find happiness, meaning being around other peoples and helping each other and so forth. So, but who's the final ruler? Well, again, if we have free will, we have to make that final decision to obey authority, whether if it's your boss or some god or government or the government or police or whatever. But why do we do that? Because we want to flourish. We want the common good, and we've seen in the news lately how authority can abuse their power. We've seen what happens to George Floyd, for example, and other victims of police brutality. So again, we should not just simply yield to authority for authority's sake. We create and follow authorities because it's for practical reasons. We can't have everyone just simply doing their own thing, because it'll create chaos, and it'll be bad for everyone. There's a joke that George Carlin told where he's driving a car with someone, and they come up to a red light, and the guy just blows through the red light, and he says, "Whoa, why'd you do that?" He said, "Oh, don't worry about it. My brother goes through red lights all the time." And they go through another red light. He said, "Whoa, what's going on here?" I said, "No, don't worry about it. My brother goes through red lights all the time." And then they come up to a green light, and the guy slams on the brake. And he said, "Okay, why are you stopping at a green light now?" He said, "Oh, because my brother could be coming the other way." So that shows up how absurd it would be if people didn't follow the law. It would create chaos. People would get hurt. Your own quality of life would be at risk. So that is why we have authorities and follow rules and so forth. It's for the common good. So all of us can flourish, and we can only do that together. We can't do that isolated from other people. So I think you mentioned that in atheism, morals is subjective, and there are no moral absolutes. Well, I think some people are moral subjectivists. Some are moral arealists, anti-realists, and nihilists and so forth. But not all atheists are like that. Some atheists are moral realists. They do believe in objective morality. Morality is the philosophy of morality and ethics is a difficult story, but I think there are objective facts about morality that we can follow. We don't simply decide, "Oh, I think this is right and this is wrong." Now, I think through life we discover what is right and what is wrong. And how do we discover that? If it leads to our flourishing. We can do things. Sometimes we think something's good, and we discover, oh, that didn't work out well at all. And our parents can tell us what's right and wrong because they have the experience. But they're not simply telling us what is right and wrong because they're the parents and you just obey what they say. No, they have much more experience than us, and they want us to flourish. They want us to be happy. So therefore, they're telling us what's right and wrong based on their experience and for our own well-being, not because they demand that we simply obey them. So I would think any loving father, which the Bible says God is, would be the same. He doesn't want things simply because he's the final ruler and his might makes right. But no, he actually cares and for his creation. So that's the end of my rebuttal.
My God, there's a lot to respond to. All right, so to respond to your rebuttal, I think you have a lot of, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, a lot of ignorance when it comes to what we Christians actually believe regarding, obeying God and why we choose to obey Him or why we do obey Him. I'm not even sure why this is even relevant, but I think I know where you're going with this. So I'll address that. Okay, so you talked about divine command theory. You talked about might makes right, and then obeying for the sake of obeying. Okay, Christians don't obey God for the sake of obeying. Okay, it is a way that we show that we love Him. 1 John chapter 5 verse 3 says that for this is the love of God that we keep His commandments, and His commandments aren't grievous. This shouldn't be too difficult for people to understand, because if your children ever want to show you that they love you and they respect you, when you make rules, they'll follow them. If they don't follow them, it will show that they don't love you and they don't have respect for you. All right, so it shouldn't be that hard to understand that. Just like if you have a spouse and you made a rule in the house saying that you can't cheat, You can't sleep with another person, and that person goes and does it anyway. Then guess what? That person is demonstrating that they don't care about you and they don't love you. So I'm not really understanding where you're going with all of that. But I will say this though. The reason why Christians choose to obey God, number one, is to show that we love him. Okay. And number two, we are submitting our will to him because we recognize that what we were doing in our lives prior to knowing him was not good enough. It wasn't getting us anywhere. And that is why we die to self daily and place our faith and our hope in Christ and believe that his way is the right way, because we did it our way long enough. That's why we came to Christ to begin with. So that's neither here nor there. The point of the matter is that the argument is that atheists are the ones who are making the final decisions in their life on what is right and what is wrong. I'll give you a perfect example. I personally believe that lying is wrong across the board. Most atheists, if not all of them, do not believe this. They believe that there's a good form of lying. They can come up with hypotheticals where they lie and claim that it would be considered good and not bad. I believe that lying is objectively wrong 100% all the time. That will be followed up with consequences. I also believe that cussing is wrong 100% of the time. There is no good time for cussing whatsoever, to use profanity, if you don't understand what I'm talking about. Atheists might disagree with me. They're going to say, well, according to my subjective opinion, there's nothing wrong with cussing. There's nothing wrong with expressing yourself using those kind of words. Well, I have a basis for my morality. And my basis for my morality is I'm looking at a holy God who is perfect, who doesn't do anything wrong, and who wants the very best for everyone, who shows that our speech should be filled with grace, should be pure as possible, and should follow after his example, versus the atheist that thinks that when they get upset, there's nothing wrong with profaning the name of God, going out there saying all kinds of vile language in front of children. I've even heard atheists go so far to say that there's nothing wrong with this profanity actually being used on TV and children should listen to it. Okay, so again, how do they determine whether or not profanity is right or wrong? What is their formula? What is their basis? How do they determine whether or not lying is right or wrong? What is their basis? Especially if they evolved from a Neanderthal or a rock or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? Or they share a common ancestor with a rock. How do they come to the conclusion that what they're saying is actually right or wrong? You want to know where they get it from? From self. They determine how something is right and how something is wrong. Then there's the issue of how they see the world. Some of them think that religion is the problem in the world. And no matter how many educated PhDs come to them, or people who have a degree in theology, or somebody who actually studied up on the topic has come to them and explained to them why they are wrong with the way they're interpreting the scriptures or the way they're interpreting somebody's holy text, they choose to ignore it and go by their own personal intuition and what they personally believe themselves is right or wrong. The only person that is able to do something like that is a God. I want to read something here in Psalms chapter 82 here. I want to read this in its full context because I know you mentioned this earlier in your debate, in your opening statement. It says, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. This is Psalms 82. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Salah. Defend the poor and the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and the needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said that ye are gods, and all of you are the children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. What is going on there? God is actually going to the leadership of Israel at this particular time, and he's calling them gods because these people are in a position to rule over the lives of other people. Okay? Then he is telling them what to do, to defend the fatherless, to do justice to the afflicted and the needy, to deliver the poor and the needy. And Israel wasn't doing these things. That's why Nebuchadnezzar came and destroyed Israel at that particular time. All right? Or what he would do in the future, rather. Okay? And then he says here that I have said that you're gods, and all of you are the children of the Most High. But you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. All he's doing is acknowledging their great authority that they have and how they will, even though they act as if they are gods, you know what I mean? They are going to die like the princes. So again, this should not be a foreign concept. And I mentioned in my opening statement, Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey says that human beings ought to strive to be their own gods. I'll actually read the quote again. Let me go here real quick. This is what he says. He says, quote, Satan serves as an external metaphorical projection of our highest personal potential. This potential is what Satanists speak of when they refer to becoming one's own God. There's a major tenet in LaVeyan Satanism, and LaVeyan Satanists happen to be atheists, and these people are into self-worshiping each other, elevating one another, exalting one another, deifying one another. Do atheists do this that are not LaVeyan Satanists? Absolutely. They're constantly talking about their education. They're constantly talking about how great they are and how bad everybody else is and why they should rule over other people because they believe that they have this great education. Thus, they make themselves out to be gods. So in order for my argument to be debunked, you have to be able to demonstrate how an atheist is not doing these things. I understand and I get that atheists have claims that they are getting their morality from empathy or submitting their will to the government and the governmental officials, and understanding that there are consequences for the things that we do. I totally get and understand it, but that doesn't negate my argument where I say that atheists are acting as if they are their own gods because no one can correct them about morality. No one can correct them about their worldview. And when we ask them about their basis, which is the most important thing, it always seems to come from self. It never comes from any real type of education or any type of study that they've done or anything like that. It's always coming from self. They believe that cussing is okay because they think cussing is okay. They believe that lying is okay on some occasions because they think it's okay to do those things. They have no basis to be able to justify it. So again, those are the things that have to be refuted in order for my argument to be destroyed ultimately and have my mind changed that atheists are not gods.
All right. I guess we're ready for the open discussion now.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, great. I guess, yeah, I have some questions, but yeah, we can just go back and forth. We can go back and forth. You said, you do things because you love God, so to show your love to God, you obey him, right? Well, there's reasons why we love people, right? I love my parents, and why I love my parents? Well, because they took care of me. They raised me. They took care of me. I feel their love and caring towards me. That that's why I love my parents. There's a reason. So if God existed and we saw the love and care that God gave us, yeah, that's a reason to love God. But if you don't believe in God, you're not convinced that one exists. Well, that's why
Okay, so
we wouldn't follow that. But you say if you do things your own way, it's not good enough, and it's not getting us anywhere. So what does that mean? Not getting us anywhere, and it's not good enough. So
I'm assuming that because like I said, Beckles spoke very well of you and said that you actually read the Bible and you actually study it. So that we Christians have a testimony of what it was like before we became Christians. Some of us were atheists, some of us were New Agers, some of us were Satanists, some of us were murderers, rapists. We were a lot of things before we met Jesus Christ as our Lord and our Savior. And we tried it our way, and it didn't work. We didn't get any joy. We didn't get any peace. Life was just not going right. And then we found out about Jesus and the sacrifice that he made on the cross. We became born again, became a new creature altogether. And we recognize that God's ways are better than our ways, are higher than our ways. And that if we live according to his ways, we'll have a better quality of life. At least that's one of the reasons anyway. Jesus says that he came to give us life and life more abundantly. And there's something I want to say regarding what you said about loving parents. Yes, the reason why we love our parents because they gave us life and they took care of us and they fended for us. But how do we demonstrate that love? Yeah, we know why we love them, but how do we show them that we love them? And that's by giving them a certain amount of respect that parents actually deserve from the time of your youth to the time that they leave this world. You know what I mean? There's a certain speech that you're going to use around your parents. There are things you're going to say and you're not going to say. You know what I mean? To show that you love your parents and you still recognize their authority in your life. So you're talking about the why. I'm talking about the how we demonstrate at this particular point on how we love our parents. So I'm not really understanding how that touches the argument, though.
Yeah. So your religion help you live a better life. There's in the past, someone might be addicted to drugs, they might be an alcoholic, they might be abusive, and so forth. And through their religion, they were able to overcome that and have a better life. They have better well-being. They're flourishing, and that was my point in my initial opener, that in Christianity it presupposes that we should seek well-being and so forth. So, I think you just demonstrate that when we say it's not getting us anywhere, you're failing at life. You're not happy. You're miserable.
Atheists are not God, though.
Well, again, an atheist can be seeking the same thing. If they're not happy, if they don't have well-being, obviously whatever they're doing is not working, so they should change their ways. But I think we can do that without believing in the Christian God. I just don't think we need that.
My claim is not that you have to believe in a Christian God. My claim is that atheists are gods. So you have an argument against atheists being gods themselves. And I am not talking about all-knowing, all-powerful, omnipresent, being invisible, being outside of time and space. I'm talking about as far as like pantheism goes in New Age, and what Anton LaVey was talking about as far as like being a god. You have an argument against that.
Yeah, but you said if you're your own God and you do things the way you want to do it, it's not going to be good enough, and it's not going to get us anywhere, right?
I said that in the sense of the Christian testimony. As far as my opening statement went, my opening statement defined an atheist as being a god, as being his own final ruler and his own divine ruler, as far as like his will and his life, and how he sees morality. Now, how am I wrong about that? If you want to change my mind today, you have to be able to show me why I'm wrong about saying atheists are gods, since they are clearly their own final rulers, and they are the ones that dictate to everyone what is right and wrong. And then on top of that, Floyd, I want you to think about this for a second too. They try to push this morality on other people who disagree with them.
Right. So you're saying, from the testimony of Christians, well, before they became Christian, they were their own final rulers. And by living that way, it wasn't good enough, and it wasn't getting them anywhere. So as a final ruler of their own lives, they were not happy. They were not successful. They were not living well. So again, when they changed their ways, they learned to become happy, to be successful, to flourish, and so forth. So again, an atheist can do the same. If the atheist is making a decision and it's not making him happy, well, if he doesn't want to be happy anymore, he obviously has to change his ways. But again, I don't see, why you have to believe in the Christian God.
Not the same thing, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because when the Christian repents and he believes on Jesus, he's submitting his will to the will of somebody who is greater than him. Atheists don't do that. Atheists are saying that it is my will that's going to be done. What I believe about morality is going to be true according to their subjective morality. And I know earlier you said that some of them have objective morality, but I haven't met one of them yet. You know what I mean? So some of them will say that they have their subjective objective morality, meaning their morality is according to their opinion, but according to that person personally, it becomes objective, which is ridiculous. That's scholarly fiction who says this kind of stuff. But the point of the matter is that I'm submitting my will to someone who is greater than me, and I am exalting the being that I'm submitting my will to. Who is the atheist submitting their will to, and who are they exalting? Nobody but self. So in this sense, they're their own deities or their own gods.
All right. So you're saying the subjective moralist atheist is just he's deciding what is right and wrong, right? What works and what doesn't, right?
Yeah, but think about it a minute. Because like I said, if I'm wrong, it'll be revealed shortly. But think about it a minute. Who tells an atheist what's right and what's wrong? Like, who tells them? Like, really? How do they come? Who goes to an atheist and say, listen, you're wrong about morality? Well, the atheists believe them and then they walk in it.
Well, again, both the Christian and the atheist has to decide with their own will to follow what they discover is right and wrong. Imagine I'm a moral subjectivist and I want to enforce my will because I think I'm my own God. And I go up to Mike Tyson and I say, well, since I'm my own God, I think I'm going to beat up Mike Tyson. And so I said, okay, Mike, let's go at it. And of course, he beats the crap out of me, no doubt.
That's neither here nor there, though, because at that particular point, that atheist would be foolish to do something like that. You know what I mean? But
right.
That does not negate the fact.
It does. He learned that doesn't work. That's not going to get him anywhere in life.
I agree.
He was a cocky SOB. He went to Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson kicked his ass. So we discover what is right.
MMA. Was the atheist do MMA, right?
Yeah. So I mean, we can impose our will, and when we're kids, we try to do that a lot, right? And over time, we learn, hey, that's not going to work. Again, there's forces greater than us that we can control. So if you better not you better not steal stuff because you're not going to get anywhere in life. It's gonna So you can't simply just assert your will because you're not going to win.
The burglar or the thief might come to the conclusion that he's going to prosper if he goes and breaks into people's houses, and he might think that he's going to prosper by stealing rings and jewelry and gold and all that kind of stuff and whatnot, make a career out of it. We know that these things happen because a lot of these people are presently in jail. And a lot of these people are actually in society, actually doing these things. So again, these subjectivists who decides for themselves what is moral, what isn't. It's the kind of person that walks around saying, I will do what I want, because that's just how I am. You know what I mean? And that will make them their own little deity. The only person that gets to walk around and be that sovereign to determine that can quote unquote do whatever he wants, as Becca would say, is God. He's the only person that can do that. But yet this issue of sovereignty is taught by LaVeyan Satanists who happen to be atheists, who actually go around saying that you could be your own little god or goddesses in Satanism. And atheists on YouTube, atheists and atheists outside of YouTube are the same way. They literally walk, talk, and live their lives as if they can do whatever they want, and no one can tell them what to do. So it makes them a little deity. And if I'm wrong about this, there'll be an argument that'll be made against it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned, the thief who's now in jail. Well, he followed his will, and where did that get him? It's probably someone's, bitch now in jail. He said, boy, I shouldn't have done that. I should have lived a better life. I could be free now. I could be, enjoying life, but here I am in jail, not thriving and so forth. You mentioned, God can do what he wants. Well, yeah, I mean, who's going to stop him? So are you saying God's might makes right since God's all powerful?
This ain't a debate on whether or not, might makes right. This is a debate on whether or not a person who practices sovereignty like that, whether or not that person is actually a god. Like I said, when the atheist is making a determination that something is right or wrong, they're not submitting their will to someone else who's greater than them. They're not exalting them because they claim to be without that type of mentality, without God. Me and Becca was talking about this before this debate, and I said that it makes it very easy for me to make this argument because atheists don't have a code of conduct. You know what I mean? Where they have these rules that they have to follow, that they have to submit to. And 99.99999% of atheists, I don't know about that one atheist that may be in the Congo somewhere that has a different opinion, but 99.99999% of atheists on here believe that morality just based on whatever their opinion is, which is why they argue for subjective morality. Even Matt Dillahunty, who tries to argue for morality being objective, he's really going according to his own subjective moral values, and he has no rule or any type of standard that he can actually appeal to show that he's actually submitting his will to something.
Well, I offer a standard again. You can't simply just say, "Oh, I'm going to do what I want to," because, I want to beat up like I said, I gave the example. I want to beat up Mike Tyson. Well, it's not, reality is not going to conform to you. Reality's, there's forces greater than you in reality. So you just can't decide what is right and wrong yourself, because as you say, it's not good enough. It's not going to get you anywhere. So you need to submit to things that are real out in reality, because they are greater than you. Now, obviously, God is greater than you, right? But there's other things greater than you as well. So you have to submit to them as well. You talk about, God is the final ruler. Well, there are examples in the Bible where people successfully argue with God, that they bargain with God, and then they don't appeal to God's might. They appeal to God's fairness. Let me screen share something real quick with you. Here's an article I just Googled real quick. Where is it? So, shoot. Why is this not coming up? Oh, yeah, there it is. All right, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, 4 people who successfully argued with God. I was going to bring up the Bible verses themselves, but I think it'd be easier just to go here. So one here, Moses and the golden calf in Exodus 32. The Israelites, they were worshiping the golden calf, and God was just going to wipe them out. And Moses said, "Hey, wait a minute, God, you just freed us from Egypt. Are you now going to, destroy us all?" So here, Moses pleaded with God to spare them, and basically in the verse itself says God repented and changed his mind. Said, "You're right. What is the point of freeing them if I'm just going to wipe them out?" Another one is in Genesis 18. Abraham pleads for Sodom. In the story, Abraham basically bargains with God. Here it is right here. Abraham says to God, "Hey, if there's just 50 righteous people in Sodom, will you not wipe out the entire city?" And God says, "Oh yeah, okay, I won't." And then he bars them all the way down to 10. So here he's appealing to God's fairness of what's fair, not simply, oh, God just decides what he wants. So here are other examples as well, but you can see they're appealing to fairness and was best, and that's what, as an atheist, I can do as well. We don't need God to do that.
Okay, so I want to respond to these 2 examples that you gave in the Bible. All that is, first of all, that doesn't negate anything. As a matter of fact, it helps to point out, because at this particular point, you have these, you have Moses, and you have and you have Abraham, both doing what we will call intercessory prayer, where we're actually praying on behalf of these cities. Well, in the sense of Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham obviously knew that Lot was in Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And he had some family living there. So he basically said, are you going to destroy the righteous with the wicked? What if you found X amount of righteous people? And then the number got smaller and smaller and smaller. He says, if I can find 10 righteous people there or 20 righteous people there, I won't destroy the city. He's still going to destroy the city. He's just hearing Moses out. And then on top of that, you also got to understand something. God lives outside of time and space, and he already saw this event happening. So this is just an example for us about how to intercede for others. And the other example that you gave regarding Abraham, what was it, Abraham, I think it was, or
yeah, it was Abraham bargained with God to save Sodom.
No. The first one was Abraham. What was the other one? I think that one was.
The first one was Moses, and not to wipe out the Israelites with the golden calf. They were worshiping the golden calf.
Right. So with Moses, when the Israelites worshiped the golden calf, and God was ready to destroy all of Israel at that particular point and start over with Moses. Again, I think God was testing Moses at this particular point. I think a lot of theologians believe that God was testing Moses at this particular point, and it was another good example of, because at this particular time, you got to remember, Moses was the intercessor, or the mediator between Israel and God. You know what I mean? Later on, this would be Jesus. You know what I mean? But Moses was the mediator. So Moses, on the behalf of Israel, which is a picture of what Christ would do later on, would go to God and say, "Look, I know you have every right to destroy these people, but remember your promises that you made. Remember why you brought us here to the desert to begin with. Remember the great nation that you wanted to build." You know what I mean? So that doesn't negate anything. He still made the final decision at the end of the day. You know what I mean? God was the one that chose whether or not he was going to destroy them or not. You know what I mean? God was the one who decided whether or not he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah or not. And that makes him God because he made the final decision. When the atheist comes to the conclusion that so-and-so is a horrible person or so-and-so is a good person or so-and-so did a good thing or a bad thing, that atheist is basing that strictly and solely on their own personal opinion or solely on their own sovereignty, where they determine that what they believe about morality is absolutely correct and they're going to act upon that. And that would make them a little deity at that particular point, according to the definitions that I gave. And this is not only shown with YouTube atheists, but this is also literally taught in Levian Satanism.
Well, yeah. Again, the reasoning with God. Imagine we're hanging out, and I see Mike Tyson across the street, and I say, "Hey, G-man," and look at Mike Tyson, man. He's so arrogant and cocky. I'm gonna go over there and beat him up. And then you laugh at me. You say, "Floyd, you gotta be kidding me. You're gonna get your ass beat. You're not gonna be able to beat Mike Tyson." You see the latest videos of him, and he's in shape, looking good. And then and you show me a video of Mike Tyson training now. And after I look at that, I say, "Oh yeah, damn, he's in shape. He looks like a killer." All right, G-man, I'm not going to do that. Well, isn't that the same thing? That happened with Moses and God and Abraham and God. They talked some sense. They talked some sense into God, just like you would talk sense into me. Don't you think you're going to be up Mike Tyson? Yeah, I'd be kidding me. So I listened. I listened, to facts about the reality of things. So what is the basis for morality? Well, it's about objective facts in the world, which we then apply to so we can achieve our well-being. The objective fact is I can't beat up Mike Tyson. I don't want to get beat up. So therefore, I'm going to decide not to go over there and confront Mike Tyson. It's the same thing. So that's the basis. It's called moral reasoning. We have to reason what is good.
No, it's not the same thing, because at this particular point, we're talking about judgment in one scenario, and you're talking about whether or not a person is going to be foolish and pick a fight with Mike Tyson. That's not the same thing. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, we got to determine who's making the final decision at the end of the day. And that final decision is going to be God. When an atheist makes a decision that a person is good or bad, whether or not they're a horrible person, whether or not they're good, it's not based on any type of intellectual doctrine or anything like that. It's just based on how they feel about the world that they live in. It's based on whatever their sovereignty tells them, whatever they decide is right or wrong at the particular moment. Like, for example, I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. I can get on this YouTube channel right now, Floyd, and say something derogatory about your wife, and I would be considered this horrible person. All these atheists will make YouTube videos, getting super chats, talking about how you did a horrible thing for talking about your wife. But if you did the exact same thing to me, none of them would make video responses calling you a horrible person, because in their world and in their rule book and how they see the world, you didn't do anything wrong. I did something wrong. You understand what I'm saying? And this is the character of these YouTube atheists as well as atheists out in society. You know what I mean? And they're only doing this is because they don't feel like they have to answer to anybody. They don't have to submit to anybody. You know what I mean? And because of that, in this particular case, they're their own little deities. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. Just because I'm calling them deities doesn't mean they got superpowers and they can jump tall buildings with a single bound or anything like that. They can't breathe underwater or nothing like that. I'm simply saying that as far as sovereignty goes and rulership goes, they are demonstrating themselves to be a little god.
Well, yeah. I mean, what you're giving there is an example of tribalism. If someone within my tribe does it, it's okay. But if someone outside my tribe does it, we're going to criticize them. We're going to make them look bad. And we see that in politics now, especially, where if someone's in my political party, I'm going to let them get away with corruption and so forth. But if someone on the other political party does it, I'm going to criticize them, and try to impeach them and all that. So it's just my tribe versus your tribe, and so forth. But that's what I'm saying. We have to end tribalism. We have to rise above it and do what is bad, because we all need to live together.
And that's what it goes back to my original argument, because I got to try to remember, because I actually agree with you, but this is a debate on whether or not atheists are gods or not. So I would ask you, how do you know that tribalism is bad? What basis are you using to determine whether or not tribalism is bad? And you're going to tell me based on your own reasoning and your own logic. You know what I mean? Based on how you view the world. And you're going to be showing me your sovereignty at that particular point. You know what I mean? This issue of atheists being their own gods, believe it or not, I don't see, me personally, Floyd, I don't believe that it can be refuted. The real question is this, because I debated Steve McRae on this topic and a couple of other people on this topic. J.D. Kane actually very briefly on this topic a long time ago on TST. And the issue came up is, can an atheist still be an atheist and believe in a non-supernatural God? That was the big debate that we had back then. And I know you're talking about tribalism. You're talking about might makes right. You're talking about disobeying God because, because we think it's right and we're just kind of like empty about doing it or whatever. That has nothing to do with the topic. The topic is whether or not are atheists so sovereign in their thinking that they present themselves as being little gods themselves. You know what I mean? Where they have become so arrogant that they believe that only their worldview is correct concerning morality. And I can give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Right now, somewhere on YouTube, there's an atheist right now who probably made a YouTube video talking about how much of a horrible person X person is because of the things that they did. They don't have a basis for any of these things. It's just based on their own. It's just based on how they see the world. You know what I mean? So it's not based on anything substantial. It's based on what they think is right and what is wrong, and they will not be corrected. They will not be taught, or I'm sorry, they won't submit their will to someone else to demonstrate that they're not the final rule, because they are. And then I'll take it a step further. Many of these atheists not only are their own final gods, but they also make gods out of other atheists when they speak so highly about another atheist. I know earlier in your opening statement, you talked about how we have heroes and we shouldn't meet them because if we do, we'll be disappointed. I heard you say that earlier, right? But when people talk about Matt Dillahunty, they talk about Matt Dillahunty like he's some type of like he's walking on water, like he's healing people, he's raising people from the dead, like he's unbeatable, and no one can possibly be in the same room with him. Who's going to defeat the great Matt Dillahunty? And it's like I should get on my hands and my knees and just worship him because of how great he is. You know what I mean? And that's how they present these people, like they're flawless and they can't make any mistakes, and their logic is perfect, and no one can deal with them or anything like that. And that's their own fault by doing that. Not only do I say that they're their own gods, but they deify other people on a regular basis.
Yeah. Well, if they do that, they're not going to move forward. I mean, I said, think not of Socrates, think of the truth. So it's the same thing. Think not of Matt Dillahunty, but think of the truth. If Matt Dillahunty makes mistakes or makes a bad argument, anyone should come forward and say, hey, Matt, you didn't do a good job here and there. It shouldn't be, oh, well, Matt's on my tribe, so therefore anything out of his mouth is right. Again, that's tribalism, and we need to reject that.
And I agree with you. That's why when I hear a Christian say something stupid on here, and I think they made a bad argument, I'll say, you know what, as much as I hate to say this, so-and-so did a better job. And I've done that a couple of times when here with people who have debated. I don't think that we always do the best job at debating. You know what I mean? I think that some atheists did get us a couple of times on some points. So I totally agree with you on that. But it doesn't negate the fact that atheists and their own sovereignty is walking around here believing that what they believe about morality is absolutely true. And not only that, they're pushing it on other people as if what the other person believes is wrong and what they believe is absolutely true, while claiming it's subjective. Absolutely hilarious. But can we get the final statements or to the latter part of this? Because I don't want this to be too long, because you want to put this on your channel, and then I want to make sure that people watch this again.
Yeah, we can finish up. I don't really have any final statements. I think it was a good chat. I enjoyed it, and everyone be safe, and Black Lives Matter.
And I personally think that you put together a well thought out PowerPoint for your opening statement. All right. So it's rare for me to say that to an atheist, because most of the time I think atheists stink at debating. So well, Vecco speaks very highly of you again when it comes to debating. He's one of the few people in this community that says, no, Floyd can debate. So, all right. So With that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this debate. Floyd, do you want to plug in your channel and let everybody know how they can find your the copy of this particular debate on your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna download and upload it to my channel. So I have a lot of presentations and debates on my channel, Floyd FP. So you can check that out. I'm on Facebook and Discord. If anyone wants to chat with me, feel free. It can be offline or online. It doesn't matter. I love to talk religion. I love to talk the Bible. Love to talk theology, so forth. If anyone wants to reach out to me, you can go ahead and contact me. Emails floydfp@gmail.com. So
I like this format of the 8x8 because it gives you the ability to lower my volume and to mute me, and then it gives me the ability to do it to you too. You know what I mean? I don't know if you noticed or not, but you have the ability also to end the stream if you want to. You know what I mean? So if you want to talk about fair, just get somebody to do 8x8 with you. And if you feel like the debate ain't going nowhere, you can just end the stream. You know what I mean? Or you can just lower the volume or whatever. You know what I mean? So with that being said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I would recommend Floyd as a debate opponent for anybody. For the most part, he's respectful. He was kind of aggressive in the email exchange that I had with him because he didn't want to come on GTV. but what do you got to say about your experience here on GTV today, Floyd?
it was good. It was good. Better than expected. I enjoyed it.
You thought you was going to be broadcasting, and you thought your volume was going to be lower, and I was going to mute you to death, right?
I was hoping you would. I didn't think you would. I had hope, and it turned out well.
I got too many Christian eyeballs on me. If I did something like that, I wouldn't hear the end of it. They wouldn't let me sleep. Especially that Veckel. Brother, I love you, brother. You know I love you, G-Man. But no disrespect, G-Man. I ain't trying. But you were wrong, G-Man, for lowering his volume. I don't feel like listening to that tonight. So I'm very happy that he's in the live chat holding me accountable right now. So
yeah, and we need the support of each other, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
So, guys, I'd like to thank all of you for watching. If you want to debate me on this YouTube channel, this is how the debate's going to go, provided that you are respectful. And we have some rules that we can use where I have to respect you and you have to respect me. We can even get a moderator if you don't trust me to do one at a time or whatever. So, you guys take care. This debate will be on Floyd's channel today, Floyd, right?
No, I'll get up within a week. Whenever I get around to it.
All right, so in about a week, this debate will be on Floyd's YouTube channel. Go subscribe to him, hit the notification bell, and hit all so that you can know when Floyd's uploading a video. All right, guys, so you guys take care. GTV. Okay, so let me try to end the broadcast here if I still remember how to do this because I did it wrong last time. How do I end the broadcast? Okay, here we go. Stop live stream. Here we go. You're going to hear something real loud.